to today's stories. Today you will hear 2 stories about people's encounters with demons. The Vessel. It was a cold autumn night. A young woman named Eliza moved into an old abandoned cottage on the outskirts of a village. The locals had always avoided the place, claiming it was cursed. Eliza, new to the village and skeptical of old superstitions, paid no heed to their warnings. She was eager for a fresh start, and the cottage, though in disrepair, held a certain charm. The first night was quiet, but as she settled into bed, a chilling wind rustled through the trees. She heard faint whispers, almost imperceptible, seeping through the cracks in the walls. She dismissed them as the wind and drifted off to sleep. As the days passed, the whispers grew louder. Eliza began to notice strange things around the cottage. Objects moved on their own. Shadows flickered where there was no light, and a sense of being watched pervaded every room. One night, she woke up to find herself unable to move, paralyzed by an unseen force. In the corner of her room, a dark, shifting shadow loomed, whispering in a language she couldn't understand. Fear gripped her heart as the whispers grew more insistent, more demanding. Desperate, Eliza sought help from the village elder, an old woman named Agnes, who still remembered the ancient rites. Agnes listened gravely to Eliza's story and confirmed her worst fears. The whispering shadow had awoken. It sought a host to manifest fully in the world, and Eliza was its chosen vessel. Agnes prepared a ritual to banish the demon, but it required great courage and strength from Eliza. They gathered in the cottage at midnight, the air thick with tension, as Agnes chanted the incantations. The shadows of the room began to writhe and join into a terrifying form. The whispers became screams, echoing in Eliza's mind, threatening to break her will. Summoning every ounce of her strength, Eliza joined in the chant, her voice trembling but resolute. The demon's presence pressed against her, a suffocating weight of darkness and despair. But she held firm, focusing on the words, on the light within her. Agnes repeated the incantations with a forceful tone. Eliza suddenly fell silent. She could feel something forcing her jaw open. Her knees and elbows seemed to be bending with immense force in the wrong directions. She tried to resist with all her will and might. A few moments passed. Agnes was still repeating the incantations when she heard a terrifying cracking sound. She opened her eyes, and in front of her was Eliza floating in the air, her jaw hanging from her face, attached only by her right cheek. Her arms bent backwards at the elbow, her knees bent towards her chest, the bones of her legs and arms sticking out of her skin, her eyes red with blood. She just hovered there like a puppet. A loud, animalistic roar came from her mutilated mouth, as she seemed to be flung across the room at Agnes, like a rag doll being thrown by a child in a tantrum. The last thing Agnes saw was Eliza's lifeless body flying towards her a moment before the impact. The Crimson Mark. In the quiet village of Ravensbrook, tales of an ancient demon had long been whispered among the townsfolk. The demon, known as Azeroth, was said to mark its chosen victims with a crimson symbol, sealing their fate. Few believed in these stories, dismissing them as old wives' tales, but that changed when Clara discovered the mark on her arm. Clara lived with her grandmother, who was very well versed in the village's lore. When Clara showed her the mark, a blood-red symbol that appeared overnight, her grandmother's face paled. "You must leave, Clara," she whispered urgently. "Azeroth has chosen you." Clara laughed nervously. "Grandma, it's just a rash or something." But her grandmother was insistent. "Go to the church. Seek Father Donovan. He might help you." Reluctantly, Clara went to the village church. Father Donovan, an elderly priest with kind eyes, listened intently as she explained. "The mark," he said gravely, "is no rash. Azeroth has indeed chosen you. We must act quickly." That night, Clara stayed in the church, hoping for protection. As midnight approached, a heavy silence fell. Suddenly, the church doors burst open. An icy wind filled the room. Clara's mark began to burn, glowing with an eerie light. Father Donovan began to chant prayers, his voice trembling. The temperature plummeted, and shadows in the corners of the church seemed to twist and writhe. Then, emerging from the darkness, Azeroth appeared. The demon was a towering figure. Its eyes burned like hot coals, and its skin a sickly grey. Its presence filled the room with dread. Clara felt an overwhelming urge to run, but her feet were rooted to the spot. "Leave this place, demon," Father Donovan shouted, holding up a crucifix. Azeroth laughed, a sound that echoed like nails on a chalkboard. "She is mine," it hissed. "The mark binds her to me." Father Donovan continued to pray, his voice rising above the demon's taunts. Azeroth advanced, its eyes locked onto Clara. She could feel its malevolence, a suffocating force that pressed down on her chest. Desperate, Clara joined in the prayers, her voice shaky but determined. The mark on her arm flared painfully, and she screamed. But she did not stop praying. Father Donovan placed a hand on her shoulder, his strength bolstering her resolve. The demon recoiled, its form flickering like a candle flame in a gust of wind. "No," it roared, clawing at the air between them. With a final, defiant prayer, Father Donovan thrust the crucifix forward. A blinding light erupted from it, engulfing Azeroth. The demon shrieked, its form dissolving into the light, until nothing remained but the echo of its rage. The church fell silent. The mark on Clara's arm faded into a faint scar, and she collapsed, exhausted but alive. Father Donovan helped her to her feet, his face lined with relief. "It's over," he said softly. "Azeroth is banished." Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe for more videos from the narrator.